Peace be with you, brothers and sisters. Today we are reading 1 Peter chapter 5. So in chapter 1 we mentioned that we live submissively in the living and eternal hope. And then in chapter 2 we need to live our God's people needs to live our hope. So it keeps mentioning that we need to submit, we need to have hope, and the days may not be easy. And yesterday we mentioned we can overcome suffering. We may. The spiritual armor that overcome suffering. It goes on. Yesterday we mentioned few important concepts. All kinds of spiritual armors. Now we are in chapter 5. Testify and endure the temporary suffering. That's from verse 1, suffering, weakness and suffering. And then verse 10, so it's from verse 1 and verse 10. That's how I come up to the title for today. 1 to 4, imitate God, be shepherd, and receive glory. To the elders among you, I appealed as a fellow elder. A witness of Christ's suffering, one who also will share in the glory to be revealed. Actually, there is a word to say, therefore. So after chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, therefore, now we come to chapter 5, the conclusion. From the whole book of 1 Peter, or if you just narrowed it down to just chapter 5, chapter 4, if you just go on to it, like we suffer in the body is done with sin. Verse 1. Chapter 4. And verse 13, rejoice. Rejoice that you participate in the suffering of Christ because you are same with Christ. That's chapter 4. You will see the glory of Jesus revealed. So rejoice when you suffer. And when you rejoice, you are blessed. The Spirit of glory will be upon you. Don't think that it's a disgrace. Rejoice. And then do good. Do good with all your heart. Now in chapter 5, in the conclusion, and Peter says here, I am a fellow elder. I have seen Christ suffered. I am a witness of Christ's suffering. I will share in the glory to be revealed. That I want to appeal to you all. This chapter is the conclusion of First Peter. Be shepherd of God's flock. So we should focus on discipleship. Yes, we have a lot of sufferings. Yes, the days are hard, are tough. Yes, the coronavirus is giving us a hard time. The days of Hong Kong have been hard. Actually, for the past, not just the fifth wave, but for the past 2 years, it has been hard. And the social movement before that was giving us a hard time too. For me, for the past few years, it has been hard. It has been hard. I did not look after my body. I was admitted in the hospital until now. It just simply is not easy. But I suffer for my own sins. It's not what we mentioned in here. So in the first Peter, it mentioned that it's better for us to suffer for doing good than to suffer because of our own sin. The wise and the foolish will suffer. The believers and the non-believers will suffer. But we can overcome sufferings. And during that process, we are in this difficult day. So we must shepherd. We must focus on shepherding. When Peter talked about discipleship, I'm strongly moved. So it's in the Gospel of John, the last chapter. That's the last words from Jesus to Peter. Feed my sheep. If you love me, feed my sheep. So Peter held fast to this word. Until the days of old, he still continued to say that, be shepherd of God's flock. The last mission Jesus entrusted to him, he held on to it even at the end of his life. So the last essence that he received from the gospel is still about discipleship. Yes, it feels like we all know about discipleship, but actually we don't know. We're not good at it. We have a lot of the going on in our battlefield of the mind. A lot of contingencies and a lot of things that you do not understand. So here it says that serving as overseers, but not because you must, but because you are willing. Just be shepherd of God's. Just do as how God will do it. It sounds simple. God wants you to be, but it's hard to understand. So not because you must, but because you are willing. People above you, you think that you are under compulsion. Do not disciple because you feel like you are forced to do it. Maybe they force you directly, or they try to encourage you, or they try to push you a bit harder. Whatever the way they try, do not give in to it. Do not feel like you're being under compulsion. Or you say that, okay, if I'm a cell leader, my cell leader will be happy, right? Oh, well, my cell leader is studying in the Bible school. All right, then I have to be this. I have to become a cell leader. Or say that if I am a cell leader, then my pastor and Simo will be happy. No, then it's like out of compulsion. If you do that, that's not good. You have done it, but the motive is wrong. Not under compulsion, but willingly. Said it's from your own initiatives. How do we know whether you're willing or reluctantly? How do we do that? Do you compare yourself with others? I come to morning devotion. How come so and so do not join morning devotion? That you feel you are under compulsion. You are not that willing. I disciple so hard. How come other people are not discipling? You feel like you are compelled to do it. Discipleship. When you disciple, do not feel like you are under compulsion of the people above you. And it's not for the money. Dishonest gain here, it actually just means that you are doing it for yourself, not for your selfish gain. Not for some advantage, then you disciple. Okay, I love Jesus, I disciple. Hey, my work will be smooth. My child will have good results, good grades. So basically, it's just dishonest gain, selfishness. We need to have a pure motive. Willingly, we treat others well. If you do not repay me, I am okay with that. If we treat our cell members well, but they do not treat us back, we pay us the way we want to do it, and then we try to be sarcastic about them. That is impure discipleship. Yes, we have given the time, but we have wrong expectation. We disciple for God. We disciple God's flock. We just do as God does. So on verse 2, now verse 3, nor being lords over those who entrusted to you. I am cell leader. Hey, I'm so powerful, right? Try to control your cell members. Control your cell members with words, with emotions. Join my cell group. You have to join me in doing morning devotion. If you don't come and join the morning devotion, how could God cares about you? You come to morning devotion, then God can bless you. You have not come to morning devotion for 3 days in a row. Try with all kinds of ways. You try to control your cell members. The more you try to do it, the worse it gets. It's just like you're looking after your kids. You raise your kids. You spend more effort. The more effort you spend on them, the result is total opposite. They suffer a lot. So to the people above you, do not think that you're under compulsion, and do not have selfish gain, and do not control. Do not be lord over those who entrusted you. Yes, we need to disciple, but you need to have a pure motive. I can't do this, I can't do that, so what should I do then? Be example to the flock. Verse 3. Just do it. Act it out, live it out. Don't talk too much. I repented because I realized I've taught too much. Whether it's towards my children, my own children, or my own disciple, I have taught too much. I have done teaching too much. I love to teach too much. They don't want to listen. They want to hear only 30%, but you have spoken like 70%. You overdo it. So when my children are in that situation, they will say, okay, it's time for a lecture from our dad. I realized that I want to share too much. Even he said so, I still lecture, I still give that teaching. But the kids, they don't want to hear, even my disciple. You just be an example for them. Be an example. Being examples to the flock. Then the strong DNA will be able to cover it. I will do what God does. As we do that, then verse 4, and when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that does not fade away. We can carry nothing to heaven, nothing. But we have the chance for the crown. That's through discipleship. You will receive crown of glory when you disciple. You disciple the way of God, God's ways. We have a lot of sufferings on earth. What should we do in the days of suffering? Disciple, shepherd. Jesus suffered, but he continued in discipleship. At the end, Jesus received the crown of glory. He called us to do the same. Now the second thing, verse 5 and 6, humble and God will exalt you. Be humble and submissive, God will exalt you. Likewise, verse 5, likewise, you younger people, submit yourself to your elders. Yes, all of you must be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility. For God resists the proud, but give grace to the humble. Verse 5. Therefore, we disciple God's ways in the way of God. We must know the principle of God. God says, as soon as you become proud, I will resist you. That's God's way. So do you want to live your life to be the way that like God will resist you? Do you want to live such a life? That's not worth it. No. Our opponent is God himself. We do it for God. When God resisted the proud and give grace to the humble, we must be submissive and be humble. Here it says, be clothed with humility. Be clothed with humility. And also in the original text, it also have like a gird. So it's like the servant, they're all ready to be called upon to serve, to act. We need to control ourselves. Be ready to serve others. That's humility. Listen at all times. Be corrected at all times. Be ready to be corrected. Be ready to serve at any time. I remember a helper of us a while back. We used to have we had three former helpers, and one of them I'm trying to referring to. Most helpers are willing to work. But when they make mistakes, they do not do the way you want it, so you need to correct them, tell them. But she kept explaining and explaining. At the end, my wife said to her, don't worry. You just say sorry. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to explain so much. It feels like that you say that I have not done wrong, but you just keep, that's the case, that's the reason. It feels like you are trying to justify yourself. I was going to do it, but because I have to walk the dog for Pastor Deborah. So she was trying to justify herself, but there is no need for that. We simply humble ourselves. I'm so sorry, I do not do the way you want it. Okay, how can I correct it? That's fine. We don't expect too much from them. We need to humble to each other, be submissive to one another. Just like in couples relationship, we submit to one another. Therefore, verse 6, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Verse 6. In these difficult times, we can be exalted. But it's God who exalts us. But God gives grace, exalts the humble. So we just do this, right? Be humble. Then God will exalt us higher and higher, more and more glorious. Verse third part. Cast your care. In faith, resist the devil. God will give you strength. Verse 7 to verse 4, all the way to verse 14. So in this chapter, it mainly talk about our attitude. We need to have the attitude for this of discipleship. Don't think that you are being compelled by the people authority. Don't keep watching over the people under you. It's our attitude. And be humble and submissive. So it's our attitude. Now, verse 7 to 14. We have a lot of worries and cares. We all have our own cares. We have a lot of cares. What we cares, what we worries, most of them do not come to pass. I encourage you to write down your worries, your cares. Find a time, write them down. Bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you keep writing every day, after 1 month, you look back, hey, what I worries do not come to pass. They do not happen. Some co-workers may be notified. Simo wants to meet you at 2 o'clock. What is it about? What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Oh, what have I just said? What? If she asks me, what should I do? And then you start to cry as soon as she sees a Simo, right? It could be a man. But it's totally wrong. The wrong channel. It's the wrong frequency. It's totally wrong. Off tune. It's only in your imagination. I take Pastor Joshua and Simo, for example, because most of us it's only a co-worker sitting down in listening, right? But it could be the same for your workplace, your boss. So one thing happened, and then you just imagine all the worst. What should we do? Cast all this upon God. Cast all this upon God. That means cast your care upon Him. You throw it to God. Because God cares for you. He is a good God. When time is right, in His way, in His time, He will give you all kind of grace. He cares for you. He cares for you. The day before yesterday, we were filming Following God. We have filmed for over 100 episodes. It's the first time we filmed Pastor Barnabas and Simo Dilly in Australia through Zoom. It's our very first time because we're so excited. On the 3/17, the 17th of March, they got 5 years working visa. So we asked, hey, how are you doing? But the miracles keep happening to them. As soon as they arrived in Australia, they were at the front of the queue for the immigration control. But everyone takes like 15 minutes to pass through the border control. They have waited for 2 hours, even though they were kind of like in the front of the queue. So for the vaccination, Australia expects a special format. Lots of them do not have that. They are vaccinated, but they have not got that kind of vaccination document. And Barnabas said, oh no, I don't have it. Oh, that will be so much trouble. So, and then right after him, at that moment, an officer came and said, the people after him will move to another. Oh, so, and then they moved to another counter. And then it's just like no vaccination record needs to show. Just go, go, go. God cares for them. They didn't have to be asked such difficult questions. So they are given 5 years working visa, right? But they need to go for the body checkup first in order to have it approved. But for the clinic in Sydney, it will be waited all the way until the end of this year. Then the tourist visa will expire in 3 months, then you have to come back. So they actually drove all the way to Melbourne, which is 300 kilometers, but it's only they have to wait until the end of this year. So then they go all the way to like 500 kilometers away, a small village. And that's May. But they don't know how long it will take, like 500 kilometers. How can they drive? Can they change the time? They log into the computer and then straight away, that's the next morning. They can't believe it's wrong. They just confirm, and then they got something to eat, and then they immediately drove all the way to 500 kilometers away. So they did 1,100 kilometers in just one day, one trip. They flew to Australia on the 17th of March. On the 22nd of March, they did the body check. Wow, it's less than a week. We always fought for the worst case scenario. And then we thought, I don't have the strength to go on. Maybe God has not called me. Maybe God doesn't want to use me. Oh, if I go there and I couldn't get the insurance, what should I do? We have all kinds of questions and cares, but God cares for us. You must trust that God cares for you. Just, write down. I know that the cares for your whole life will be too much. Just write it all down. Then you realize that most of them did not happen, so do not worry anymore. Do not worry. My kids are dating. So we just try to say it, in an explicit and implicit way. Do not bully your girlfriend, your girls. And then my kids say, no, you keep telling me ever since when I was young. So my worries keeps working. Do not do that. The days are hard, but God cares for us. Just cast them upon God and resist the devil in faith. We must have the word of God. The conclusion is the same. Verse 9. Knowing that the same suffering are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. Verse 9. Jesus suffered, the elders suffered, all brethren, the whole brotherhood suffer. And then verse 10. But may the God of all grace, God will give you all grace. And God has called us, who called us, and we will be called into his eternal glory. After we overcome suffering, when we go through some offerings, God will perfect us. God will establish us. Verse 10. Whatever you have done will be good enough. God will do the rest. You have not got the correct format of the vaccination record. God will change it. God will make a way for you. You have tried many, many different ways. You have tried many ways to do the body check, and then you have to wait until the end of the year. God will move. God will act. God will perfect. God will establish. God will strengthen and settle you. Verse 10. All power comes from God. So from this Purim, yes, our days could be horrible, but we can live happily. Yes, the pandemic is severe, but we rejoice in our heart. We have joy in our heart. Because God had prepared us mentally, emotionally. God say, I watches over you. I watch over you. I watch over you. My eyes are on you. I had told you ahead of time. I watch over you. I will protect you. That should be our personal experience. As we go on this journey together, remember that God cares for us. But God doesn't want us to be proud. Remember this. God doesn't want us to be worried. God wants us to disciple. Just do as God, what God likes. And we will share, be partaker of his glory. The days are hard. We continue to disciple. The days are hard. There will be more people who need to be discipled. I think Hong Kong people is really suffering these days. And many friends will call from overseas, hey, what do you need? Let me send you something. People know that Hong Kong is really suffering. Generally, people are having bad mood. But we have God in our lives. We know that God cares for us. So we must disciple more so that they know that God cares for them. And together we'll enter into God's glory. Let's all arise and worship our God.